Here with both that Mirage that you love to highlight banned out by the likes of Purdue. They're probably listening behind the scenes there. Northwood themselves going to be taking that Bebop away. Don't want anything to do with it after what was that last match with Cardi there. Instead, we will still see Purdue walk away with the Haze, notably into potentially the hands of Jester once again here. And something that I did want to touch on, slew on this McGinnis. An underrated pick personally when I talk about that high level deadlock play. If you're able to make the turrets and that spectral wall work for you, it can be a supreme fighting entity and split as well here.
And Slew was making that happen. I think back to the game when you saw Slew in a one-on-one, I'm pretty sure against the Wraith Soaks, who was really St. Clair's pop-off character. And the 1v1 was prolonged so long. You saw Slew just utilizing the turrets, everything to the best ability. I think that's Slew. If you go back to the McGinnis, I wouldn't be too surprised. But we're seeing a little bit of a change in the draft on the side of Northwood with, on the side of Purdue with seeing the Wraith come in alongside this Ivy and the Haze. I'm not surprised at all to see this Haze come in.
No, not at all here. I will say the Haze, a fantastic setup for them off of what was last matches. Notably, we did get a little taste of the Wraith, I believe, under what was Nocturnal. And this is a composition that does build super well now, right? We've seen the supportive entity that Macron can play when we were talking about initially that Ivy. We got some incredible rescues and performances there in that regard. And of course, you bring up things like that airdrop, but ultimately, this is a composition that is putting itself together front to back, and more importantly, across the time scale of what we will see when we talk about the accumulation of souls. This is something that most teams, notably in my personal opinion, aren't good enough yet to capitalize on early game pressure. So having these scaling options on your arsenal for Purdue is going to be something that potentially pays off for them if they can get to that late game.
You think about shutdowns for that scaling. I mean, the Infernus ultimate, the concussive combustion alongside the Dynamo with the singularity. We saw that singularity be a little bit of an issue for the Haze in the match versus Purdue versus Thomas. And, you know, maybe towards the end it wasn't as prominent, but you saw the Haze get caught by that singularity here and there. And, you know, in the hands of somebody of Northwood, will that elevate this hero now? Alongside that, a Viscous pickup. We haven't actually seen Viscous today, but in the likes of maybe potential survivability against a composition that Purdue is putting together, that cube is going to come in handy, especially if that Dynamo finds himself in trouble using that singularity. So I don't mind seeing the Viscous at all.
No, not at all. I think it is a supportive option that is you can write home all the time about. Fantastic for the laning phase, and of course can build into, like you said, some really, really good safety. And alongside that Dynamo, you have a very nice setup for what could potentially be these dual lanes when we talk about Broadway and Greenwich as we get into the game here. The Abrams and Krill, though, they set up that wombo, literally combo, that we're going to be seeing out of Purdue here. And they do put together, once again, that front to back that I brought up at the beginning of this draft. Now, notably, with the lockdown potential that I was waiting to see from Purdue. The damage is great, but if you don't have a way to access that damage and put it together, or at least sustain what is an easy realm of execution there, that's what you're going to be missing. And of course, that Krill and Abrams is an excellent pickup that will enable both of those high scaling picks to pull up off.
And I was a little bit worried because I said in the match versus St. Clair that, you know, we see a Krill on one side. You usually expect the Paradox to go to the other side, but instead Purdue gets away with both the Krill, the Paradox, and the Wraith, which are three really good setup options for this Abrams. And for the Abrams and the Haze. So for Purdue to kind of get away from that, that is going to be really difficult for Northwood to deal with when it comes to, I'm sure, the ganks that Purdue will be putting together.
Yeah, absolutely. Northwood, the first side of the bracket, but we'll jump hot into the game here. Purdue, of course, are your Ambire Ham. Northwood, your Sapphire Flame.
So taking a look at the matchups that we do have, Viscous McGinnis in the Greenwich side for Northwood. Northwood also representing the Shiv and the Dynamo working together, and they're going to be fighting up against the Paradox and the Wraith. So I'd say Northwood putting these lanes together very well. Purdue, not too bad, but they're going to have to be careful and show some respect, I'd say, especially in that Greenwich lane.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of play that we can see out of Slew later here, but you are right. With the early scaling that can really come online from things like, of course, that Abrams, paying your respects, especially with that early potential and closing towards that kind of 10-minute marquee, you have to be super, super careful. And the thankful thing is Faustus is going to be notably on the Viscous here. This is a big difference. It was last time around we saw him on what was instead the Infernus. So a slight change to balance out this roster.
Yeah, it slew over towards that Viscous. I wouldn't say it's too different from the McGinnis, but you're kind of playing, like, I'd say a whole different ballpark when it comes to where you provide your support. Rather than long range, Viscous is very in that brawl sense. Icy on the Warden, still having no issues. That's going to be Sage going down and a little bit damage over towards this York downtown Guardian. As we're coming up to 2 minutes, just a minute left before those boxes start spawning up as well. And I'm sure that's when we're going to start seeing some of these Northwood players go take some routes.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, getting that secured there is alongside that. Something I do want to point out is we are seeing a little bit of a dominance in the hands of Jester thus far when we take a look at the other side of the map as we peel over towards the park side. And it will inevitably be Jester in major leads here against what I can only assume is Tired here. Now in the hands of the Infernus. It's a little bit more of a pickup that's ease of action there, but you definitely don't want what we arguably said was one of the weakest performances against someone you don't need to come online here.
Yeah, and we expected Tired to maybe struggle a little bit, but Tired will know that even if you struggle in this early game, the rest of your team is there to lift you up as you start to scale. And I didn't really see Tired go that far down into the later games. I mean, he still was able to manage to put up those storm clouds and deal a lot of damage on that 7, but with the Infernus, how will that play into it? You don't have that accessibility of just jumping up and proccing that ultimate right away.
As we pop on back over, of course, to Greenwich side of things, I do want to point out fantastic utilization of the Spectral Wall there. It's something that Slew has shown coming off of what was the semifinals area, and will continue to do so. But we'll continue to see even more pressure here on the other side. Icy, one of the first pickups, of course, with that Guardian in tow here. I personally was not expecting to see the Warden absolutely come alive this early into game. And for this big switch up, especially of Sage on the Moan Krill, we needed to see the bleeding absolutely stop here. That's a big tool for getting into the fights here for Purdue. And if you want to be in that tanky forefront position to really work with things like that combo later on, you need to sustain, pick the souls back up, and close the gap, because it's 2k difference. Icy is already in the availability of a last stand. That is a super early ultimate pickup due to the fact that you've been wasting away. My gosh.
Sage, yeah, going down again. It's tough because you know the capabilities of Icy on the Mirage, and on Warden, you can do just as much, if not more, in that last stand. Well, Guardian's gonna go deep. Looking to see some trades. The Guardian chip damage, and the Cube coming to the rescue there. In deep is Admiral Macron, and Macron gonna drop there at the assist from Faustus. It's Slew picking up that finisher for the Ivy.
Shout out to Faustus, an incredible save. We talked about the safety of this pickup in this lane, and there you go. Once we get to the mid game, you see that deep engagement here. No surprise on that, especially with that shoulder charge now being available. And instead, it is a complete dominance of lane. Faustus doesn't even slow down here. Constantly tagging us for the seismic impact immediately coming out here. The Goop Ball will provide a bit of security. Can Slew make the escape? A bit of a punch away, and finally the Spectral Wall just a little too late.
Yeah, you might get away with the goo ball, but you can't goo ball your teammate there. Slew has to go back to spawn, heal up, and that's going to be some good damage onto the Guardian. But take a look over towards York. Icy just laying down the law against this Moan Krill. Sage just can do absolutely nothing but farm up around him and allow Icy to chip at this Walker, already down to about half. He's getting pinched out here, so this is a good chance to utilize that airdrop. Icy goes into last stand. Can you sustain enough? It's going to be a tough fight in the 1 versus 3, but look at that damage he's doing. Down goes Macron. You lose the last stand, and Icy is big chillin' here in York.
Meanwhile, tries to hit the bind, finds it on the other side there. Cardi will pummel back with a couple of punches. That'll pick a little bit of the healing out of the way, but Faustus rotating on the other side there secures an absurd level of kills. But it really comes back to Icy. 3v1 potential. We talk about the build-up after securing so many of those early souls there. 5K, absolutely absurd. It makes a massive difference. Even if it is close there, you're not as strong walking into that lane-on-lane matchup.
And he just continues to impress for that one, but that's most likely the Guardian still under pressure over towards the York downtown. And I mean, fortunately enough for Purdue, that's the only objectives that you've lost. But Icy can take this time now that it's shoved over to help out Greenwich. So this is a great call for Northwood to just continue to push some pressure onto Purdue.
Absolutely. We need to see some kind of response here, but ultimately, in the end, love that kinetic carbine. Good chunk of damage up above from Flash. Notably, we did talk about this. This is EN. Going to be Flash on your screen currently as well. That's going to be one of the newer players that we're checking out coming into our final of the day. And also some of the final moments of Macron.
Going down, the Guardian will fall. I mean, McGinnis just shreds right through that Guardian health. Maybe not going to fall right away. Going to be forced off by Sage. Faustus still not giving up for this one just yet.
Love this.
Yeah, the cube's going to get you back nice and healthy, and you're going to have a wave now to push Sage even further back. This Guardian most likely will end up falling, and Sage and Macron cannot do anything to stop it.
Literally sitting on the 4-500s there, nothing to write home about for Sage in terms of the early itemization. And meanwhile, as Seismic impact from Cardi will continue the pressure. Icy caught out finally in far too deep here, past that initial Guardian, out and away there. Cardi, one of the first few to actually capitalize on that situation. Another big one for us is Jester. We worried about Tired here, already picking up the security there. Now Slew with the Spectral. It's going to be an airdrop that secures safety out and away for the both of these two. Hop off the Covenant, and you will secure a Guardian alongside it.
Not going to give up, though, for Northwood. And you're in here. Macron going to punch the last stand, now being procced for Northwood. It's hunting down this Abrams. Cardi, even with the Divine Barrier, just not able to outlast the damage that Icy is laying down. They had the shot at the Guardian, and you had the backup there from Macron, but it just didn't seem like Purdue were really able to read that properly.
No, especially when we talk about the fact that you've got Icy now in this slowing Hexa as well. It makes that escape potential so much harder. The air drops down and away, and anybody who's just on walking potential, no shoulder charge, notably for Cardi on their side, means that's it. There's not much for you to do here.
I'm waiting for Jester to maybe make some moves. Flash is going to take out Malachite, so that's a pick onto the Dynamo. Should be able to open up some of these lanes as Braden's now solo holding over towards Broadway Uptown. You see Purple Guardian's going to fall on the side of Northwood. That's Jester pushing Tired further and further back this lane. As now that that's done, I mean, Tired, although you are pushing back, if you give this up, I think Jester can start to maybe look to provide some support now.
Yeah, potential opportunities out and away there. It's that big difference. We talk about the Icy Sage lane and the Tired Jester lane. And Tired, credit where it is due, far from the performances we saw last time around on what was the 7, albeit it is still a massive 3K difference between the both of this lane on matchup. Jester, like you said, the minute they start getting into these major team fights and we see that potential smoke bomb into bullet dance combo that we have come to know from the successful Purdue gameplay last time around, that could be the difference maker that we need after what a dominance we've seen from Icy in the early game.
Especially when that Haze gets the ricochet into the unstoppable, into the silencer. I mean, it's just, it adds on when that Haze gets active. But we're seeing Macron in a little bit of an issue here. Gonna take to the sky. Tired goes down again. Can Macron stay alive? Yes, the Ivy is gonna be able to escape back to the Walker. So now gonna turn around, wave clear alongside this in Krill in a moment. Abrams looking to get pushed out. Icy with the call to hopefully catch this overextension. Cardi is going to find the York Guardian over on the uptown side of Northwood, but will it cost you in your life? It seems like that's going to be the case. The parry into the kill. Icy, ironically, is on fire.
Yeah, you just can't bait it out when you're in that direct mano-y-mano combat there. You have to temper your fist there, because Icy will freeze you where you stand. In the end, it is still a dominant switch up for Icy there, but I do like the fact that they did switch it out to Picardi. Now, Singularity double catch complex there to send Flash a blink away here. It's one of the better responses we've gotten out of Northwood from that security, and now maybe the push to go alongside it. This Guardian completely full health, but like we've seen, now on the recovery, 2 members on the other side, Macron and Sage, potentially looking for what could be side ganks here.
Everyone's going to be picked up too by Tired. It looks like Northwood are going to run this telekinesis. Investis. Will that be enough for Nocturnal to proc this fight? It looks like Northwood aren't going to be able to escape. Malachite comes to help that one out, most likely transferring them away. York Walker goes down by Icy, and that urn is going to safely find its way.
Shout out to Northwood. They've had good control, like you said, with that early push from Tired, and that's why they get the transition. There's so much attention to spread on the map, especially when you have Icy pushing so deep that it's going to lead to these macro securities here. In the end, now to switch over to Greenwich, that'll be the push alongside Tired to hopefully start to open up the rest of the map, because that is one major walker down, with Icy now potentially not really looking to side lane split. That's going to be a worrisome enemy here for the future.
And on top of that, you still have 2 Guardians standing. You don't have your flex slot yet. If you're Purdue, you just need to take one more down, but it's just tough to break through this impenetrable wall that has been the Northwood dual lanes. As the Viscous is holding down Greenwich, you have still the Shiv and the Dynamo doubled up here over onto Broadway. Now, Purple's actually being pushed out by the McGinnis and the Infernus. That's Tired and Faustus, going to force a little bit of action from Purdue to maybe catch this.
Got Slew over here on the side on that. McGinnis is going to back away for just a bit, but this does force that response. Like you're saying, Flash is quick to jump over to the side here, and remember, this opens the map up. Having this kind of quick reaction here is something that now we see Cardi being taken advantage of. Binding launch there into the double stun is finally responded with the combo from Sage to lock Icy down here, but that is a thick Warden indeed. The stand to come over this decisive because up into the sky, and I'll tell you what, it will represent with at least 1 KP pickup. Meanwhile, Faustus from the backside, I mean, he will absolutely lay it in a chunk away here from behind the truck.
Yeah, Viscous not afraid to jump in deep to help out your Warden. Death stands. Icy still alive, cubed by Faustus, who's been all over the support of his teammates. Healing right should get this Viscous back to full health, and it looks like Icy not out of danger just yet. Jester's going to be able to track down that Warden. A big kill there. And this is exactly what you're looking for from Purdue. And your Haze looking to make it a double kill, but that's a tough Viscous. Here comes Malachite, and there goes Jester.
That's about as good as you can ask for. Meanwhile, the Spectral Wall from the other side stuns just about everyone. A full AP upgraded telekinesis will stop this fight in its tracks as the knockup once again. Braden aside, can't quite find the execution to hold for Purdue here. They open up finally with Jester coming on down to Greenwich, and the rest of the team delivers as the cleanup.
And it's so smart from Jester to pressure that one out enough. I mean, you get that singularity out. It's so quick as Malachite to react to that, especially considering Faustus was in trouble. But as soon as that singularity's done, what's going to stop Purdue from following up Jester? So it's just good teamwork from Purdue finally putting a breath of life into the side. You're going to get your flex slot out, and you and I, you get a moment to breathe, and I mean a moment.
Absolutely. We're already right back into it there. Jester, notably, I do want to point this out, 16k up, the leader of the pack here. What was massive, at least early KP pickups from Icy, we have to at least contextualize with the difference of soul expansion. It gets more extreme as time goes on here. And I will say, as we take a look at Jester, that itemization to go alongside it already has that ricochet available. This is a massive pickup to go alongside the capitalization around the bullet dance. It makes that ultimate twice as scary coming into these team fights, and it's the whole, at least what we see out of that great farming potential and control out towards the side of Park Avenue this game.
Well, let's see it. Ricochet active, going to be caught by the kinetic pull, so you track down this Dynamo, you do, but you have a chance to turn. It's a 3-on-1. The telekinesis picks up Braden. You lose out on Cardi, but the trade over into Broadway should be able to pressure out this Walker. Luckily, the Dynamo got out, so you have some wave clear there for Northwood. but that's going to force Purdue away from this one. They know that Icy and Faustus are in Greenwich, so they're going to collapse on these two.
Faustus there just running out of the goo ball. Will have to walk this way. No longer 60 to 70% on that resistance. Should be safe here, but unlikely to save the day for Icy this time around. Flash, of course, with that paradoxical swap. Now, a full send here. I do want to point out Slew and Tired, respectively, playing the outer lanes there. Park and York trying to look for push. You do have a response by Cardi on one side, and have to be super careful because I'm pretty sure Tired's going to get caught out from this one.
I mean, I don't know how else to put it other than I'm just really impressed with the adaptations I'm seeing from Purdue. The one issue I was seeing from St. Clair is, yes, they tested Northwood early, but they never really changed the way that they were playing. Purdue are completely swapping up their focuses. Now that you have Jester roaming around the map, Icy is no longer able to just bully people out, because as soon as you do for Northwood, Purdue are recognizing that, and they are turning around to help out the rest of their team. I mean, this is a really good change from Purdue.
I mean, it's really just simply what can a Warden do in the mid game versus these high scaling picks. If you put all of your soul structure onto something like Jester, you're gonna get more bang for your buck. In comparison, on the other side of things there, you are not going to be as successful with that Warden on its expansion, especially given the fact that most of the kills were sustained early here. Sadly, by the way, the urn not quite picked up. Tried to pull it off with the airdrop there. It's a pretty standard combo. In the end, it's going to be dropped completely by the likes of Jester here. And what could have been a nice early setup for Purdue would have been one of the first ones we've seen this game thus far.
And you might be surprised why I put the Urn down, but I mean, you lose Cardi. And although Cardi's going to call off the respawn, you just don't want to be caught on that rotation. Especially if Northwood start to shove these lanes. You have to react to that and get some of that map control back. So this is when there's a little bit of a lull in the fight, so around the 17, almost 18-minute mark, and teams are going to be looking to clear out their camps to see if you can force into the next stage of itemization that you're going to be looking at for power scaling. I'm sure definitely the Haze is going to be looking towards that, but for players from Northwood who are maybe starting to fall behind and need that next item to really push them into contention of Jester on this Haze, these camps are going to come in real handy, but Jester just continues to catch people out and hunt them down.
Yeah, this is a big problem there because it's not just the ricochet anymore. Also the lucky shot as well. You've ballooned the damage potential to go alongside Jester. The single pick potential, it's already terrifying in team fights. But if you are caught out alone, it is simply but that. Shout out to Icy though, still being this split menace. Distracted for just a moment long there, especially after the reset from Cardi. Icy is able to walk this one forward and at least secure walkers ahead. That's another flex slot.
And Icy's already back with the team. Nocturnal, she went to go cover that wave back at purple, but it's already done. Here comes the urn, airdropping the Haze. It's going to be Jester carrying it around, but everybody's grouped up. This is going to be a lethal team fight, to say the least. Everybody here from Northwood, you have all the ults as well.
This sucks. I really would love to see they prioritize someone else on that urn because you need Jester for these fights more directly. So glad that it is the drop that comes alongside it. Likely the end for Faustus. Love the heavy melee there to push the cube out and away. It's a full paradoxical swap to go alongside it. Nocturnal in the end, not going to be available. Already used telekinesis with the seismic slam into the back lane. It's a setup for singularities across the board here. A big execution on their side as the combo will lock down in response here, trying to dash us away, but from above, you still have Jester in the midst of the action. The ricochet potential is just too much for them to handle.
The depths of the composition from Purdue is shown. The slam from Cardi, the pickup from Sage. Finally, that combo actually shutting down some main state there from Northwood. It just sets up Jester to put it all away with that death dance. It's a beautiful symphony there from Purdue. And on top of that, you get the urn. Fortunately enough, and you may have missed it for a second in that team fight, but Slew did push through that Greenwich side. He got the Greenwich walkers. That's 3 walkers down now for Purdue.
But this is the problem. We're getting into these, at least, exchanges that are becoming bigger and bigger here. Northwood isn't able to survive with as many pieces of the puzzle, and as those respawn timers get longer here, I mean, even though the macro hasn't been absolutely perfect from Purdue, they're going to be in a situation where off of a successful team fight like that in just a few minutes, they can walk in and potentially end it all off of a nice reset there,
Yeah.
or even set up for great things like that mid-boss. This isn't one of those situations, given that we're still at that 20-minute mark here, but it leaves me so worrisome, because when we jump back over now to the side of Jester, we've got even more to work with. An inhibitor in play here, another tier 4 item. This is a massive slow that Jester now has to work with in the midst of these team fights. We talk about the escape potential. It's going to be little to none there, given the fact that Jester's doing this so well.
Yeah,
Does not get into the midst, doesn't invest the bullet, just sends it.
Icy going to be picked up in the transfer. Now Malachi just trying to keep the rest of the team alive. Divine Barrier gonna hold them strong as Jester's Death Dance is not active. You get the rescue beam back.
Nice.
You got the abilities out, almost taking down Malachite. Very low is the Dynamo. I think Purdue got exactly what they were hoping for. Maybe a couple kills, but they're able to shove this lane deeper.
This is the problem. Jester doesn't even have the Bolt Dance available, but when you're this high scaled on your itemization, all you have to do is just auto. The absolute scaling, those fixation stacks, it just makes you in threat when you are in this sight line here. Gonna find the sleep dagger now. Icy has to respect this. Knocked up from afar. The wall is a place of safety from Flash.
Singularity almost active. 8 more seconds. Malachite may look to go into this. You have the Warp Stone, and you have Icy here, but Icy is so low. No healing right either. It does get stopped, so this is where Purdue should just keep on pushing. Jester now looking for a different angle in. You have a tussle over towards downtown York where Slew is trying to push against Cardi. Jester now taking a different look into this one. The ricochet lands. Icy is going to be taken down. And where is this going to stop? This not going to stop anywhere soon.
This is just absurd at this point. You're not even respectfully, what I would even say is a team fight. You are just straight deathballing it there, and anyone who's caught out for a second too long just burns at the might of Jester here on their way to their next walker across. I need to see some kind of response here from Northwood, because they are bleeding at the seams here.
Jester's a monster. There's no other way to say it. The respawn timers, fortunately, aren't long enough to give them that mid-fight capabilities, but if Jester drops down and starts the mid-boss, maybe that can start another team fight. And Purdue are so confident in their win capabilities right now. They've just won the past, 3 team fights in a row. Northwood haven't really shown anything recently that can stop Jester.
I mean, this is the problem, right? You could potentially itemize, pick up things like that curse to at least slow the problem down, but when you're focused so much on one single major target, you are getting to the point where things like Cardi are beginning to get really, really scary. That as an engage tool, alongside pickups like great itemization, alongside, my apologies, the Colossus. I mean, that is a fantastic threat in your backline that you have to figure out how to play against. Not to mention Nocturnal. She's getting so strong as well. This is a high scaling spirit damage alongside the weapon to just absolutely shred him. Meanwhile, chase Jester all day long. See how that plays out.
It's not going to play out in any way. The escape capabilities of this Haze, and already back to full health. Icy going to pivot over towards Greenwich. See if you can catch this lane as they're pushed in towards the Walker. Nocturnal easily able to get out of there in the TP. Maybe the Mo and Krill, but the airdrop is enough to stun up Icy, and you just cannot chase them just yet. Brayden tries, but he dies to the Flash. And the Paradox is going to eliminate the Shiv, and 3 members of Northwood now on respawn with 41 seconds on Brayden. Do you maybe look to mid-boss, or are you just going to crack the base here?
They're already side-splitting almost all the lanes there. I'll point out the position of Jester on the other side here. It is a complete dominance as they do invest into those double Guardians now. I mean, this is your best opportunity. It's a big split. You could potentially pull something off here, but like I said, you're just no longer matching up even when it doesn't contain Jester.
Hey, you're on survival mode right now if you're Northwood. It's just, where can we shut them down? We have to maybe isolate some of these teammates, but as soon as they do, the rest are right around the corner. Purdue are everywhere on the map, yet nowhere at the same time. When you try to chase them, you can't keep up, and when you want to fight, you're just walking into a trap.
I'll tell you what, we'll take a little bit of respite on the fight, and likely because it is going to be a clear of Broadway from Jester's side there. Maybe, no, not quite the investment, all the way over towards the eastern end. Even still, though, watch out for this response from behind. Jester will come through.
Yeah, Jester just looking to line up, just slipping into the back line.
So behind.
Nobody has any idea the telekinesis is available at all. The setup is going to be here, and you just need that engage. Singularity not going to be popped up just yet, and it's not even enough to keep them alive. Jester's going to rip through the Dynamo, and Cardi follows up. 3 down for Northwood, and Purdue pushing forward.
Already following suit immediately with the airdrop there. I'm going to assume the kudzu bomb already utilized up from above. It's the likes of Icy, who is nothing but a marshmallow at the face of this damage at this point in the game. It is a complete dominance from the likes of Purdue here. And now, with major timers on the board, 30 seconds plus, this is likely the end.
Second shrine being deleted. Braden's alive, but a lonesome Shiv against the might of Purdue. Not much to be done here. Slew may be up. Malachite not having that singularity. Tired. You do have the concussive combustion, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
We're already at the discussion point. It's a almost 40, 50k soul difference. The game is over. This is now a discussion regarding what can Northwood do when we talk about the next game here, because even with all these members up, you're not going to match up damage-wise.
You're just thinking about the next game here if you're Northwood. As the fight in the pit ensues, the heavy barrage, will it find something? Sage does fall, but the shots onto the patron, looking to bleed it out. Jester finds Malachite and Tired. The patron's destroyed, and Purdue wants out of a carry like Icy. Everybody else was showing up and providing that support. I think Malachite and Faustus was really allowing, you know, Icy to prolong a lot of these fights. But if it's not Icy and you don't have Braden really stepping up on the Shiv and Slew, you know, the mini turrets were kind of not really present in a lot of these fights, you're going to need to turn around a lot of these picks. And lo and behold, we go into the draft and you still have Purdue banning out the Mirage. I don't hate that whatsoever. I think targeting Icy is the right thing. But now Northwood just get to target Jester and they take the Haze out.
Fantastic there. And I like the fact that they also finally take away this Wraith pick. Nocturnal has been so good at setting up a lot of these initial pick potential plays, playing off of her telekinesis. And it's something that now in the hands of Northwood could be an access point, not only in that setup there, but also something that we haven't seen is the absurd damage scaling. And the fact that on the opposite side of things, we also see the immediate trade for the Infernus just shows me how much of a heavy pick that Spirit constant DPS between these two mystics in particular dictate the game right now.
Yeah. And, well, I think for Purdue swapping over to this McGinnis Infernus, it's a little bit of a difference between what they had in their first setup in composition. You're kind of taking a page out of Northwood's book, but is that good enough to maybe force Northwood onto picks that they're not as comfortable with? Because we've seen Slew play this McGinnis 2 games in a row. Infernus on Tired, you know, Tired struggled on the 7, struggled on the Infernus, so maybe it's not the worst thing to see the Infernus fall out of the hands, but that McGinnis really makes me a little worried about Slew.
Still, plenty of options on the board. It is not the end-all be-all, and especially if your priorities towards that split potential, you do have some flexibility to work with there. Granted, the spectral wall combination and the split potential is at its strongest with McGinnis. So I actually am really curious to see where Purdue put it more than anything, just because, you know, outside of Cardi kind of getting involved in that conversation, and maybe Sage, if we're still getting a little analysis on that one there. That's something that I'm waiting to see. But we'll round out Purdue with 2 major supportive pickups there, the Ivy and the Viscous. We got to see them really highlighted, notably the Ivy, of course, being a very high presence pick here in what was some of the early games there, and then alongside it, the Viscous. I mean, yeah. Faustus on Northwood shows how much survivability you can really play around between the cube and, of course, self-induce the goo ball.
And maybe the goo ball can't help out your teammates, but you can stun up everybody around you, so it does have some other effects to it. We see Malachite swapping away from what was the Dynamo back in game 1, now back to the Paradox, I'd imagine. We saw the Paradox really give some trouble over towards the Saints in terms of, I think that, Malachite did a really good job at using Paradox to set the rest of the team up. It's what you want from Paradox. If you can land those paradoxical swaps onto your opponents, that allows for your power carry to just have an even easier target to take down, or maybe the power carry's off somewhere else and you're just setting the rest of your team up. So I love Paradox being picked off. I think Paradox she's one of the best characters in the game right now, and alongside that, I'd say the same goes for Kelvin.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of the support threshold for those kind of subsidiary picks, the absolute team fight prowess and the pick potential on a Kelvin can be so otherworldly in terms of the at least current available options there in that regard. And then on top of that, playing around what is also solo damage pick potential for the Kelvin. If you're not optimizing for souls, it still doesn't matter. He has a lot of really strong base damage that in a supportive lane can be the difference maker, especially in the early game. The Shiv, though, in the end, still on the side of Northwood. We're not going to be walking away from that one anytime yet. It's been a pickup for Braden all day long here, and it's still, like you said, an option that does hold some variety and some opportunity. It just requires a really, really nice solo skill set, and it's something that we haven't gotten yet.
Speaking of something that we haven't really gotten yet, a Pocket locked in. Okay, we are kind of talking about Pocket. Where's Pocket? And, the nerfs have put Pocket back into his briefcase, but I am still a big fan of Pocket. I think the engage that Pocket has and the presence in that front line that Pocket can, give out with that affliction is really good for team compositions at the pro level. And you see that Pocket has such big impacts for the start of fights and, really withering down your opponents to allow the rest to just chip them away. And I love seeing Pocket picked up here for Northwood.
Now, I'm curious to see where it actually ends up, if it's in potentially the hands of someone like Icy, because it does have a lot of that solo potential on the side lanes. It's not as strong with the nerfs, but kind of very similar to what we were discussing with the Shiv, with, the skill sets of a potential player like Icy maybe on the board for it, could be potentially very, very good if that is not the option you end up running over towards the edge there. Still, pickups like the Wraith or 7 could be just as good. On the other side for Purdue, the finish up with the Lady Geist, once again,
a wait with what they're bringing to this one, but it isn't the Lady Geist going over towards Jester. It actually looks like it's the McGinnis falling into Jester's hand. Gonna have to see if that is right, and it is right. So Flash or Ian swapping away from the Paradox onto the Lady Geist. I'm not too upset with that. I think that Flash was still providing so much with that Paradox back in game 1.
Absolutely. It's something we'll have to take a look at and see how it potentially impacts the rest of this team here as we make our way through the match. I do want to point out, Icy, though, on that Wraith, we talk about the presence of being a hard scaler and what Icy wasn't able to do on Warden. I really like that they have now changed that one up there to potentially give the opportunity to be just as powerful or just as scary as someone in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I think that for Icy is still playing up against Sage too. And if you can do as much damage as you did on that Warden, that's going to make this Wraith really scary really early. And the other side, the same goes for Jester, but instead of playing tired in that solo lane, you're matching up against Malachite over on this Kelvin. And if that's something that Northwood we're talking about, maybe tired just isn't as comfortable in the solo lane battles, switching Malachite over onto a Kelvin is really going to put a leash on this Jester pick.
Yes, and on the other side of things, it's still Sage. And that Viscous matchup already, if you take a look at the top of the board there, is struggling. Already a whole 600 souls behind here with Icy on that Guardian push. This is something that will continue to accelerate here if Sage is continuing to play the back foot, and more than that, getting absolutely dove here. That is as aggressive as it gets. Icy going to pay the price, notably with that Guardian defense there, and ultimately not pick up the kill. But, I mean, it just goes to show what this lane might potentially become.
Yeah, I think that Icy really had a right idea. Parried out the Guardian and tried to jump right in, but albeit you parry it out, you still take so much damage. So it was a good try for Icy. I think that more so that's Icy limit testing on what you can do against this Viscous than really anything else, and this reset is going to be quick. You saw that Sage, with that little bit of a lull, was able to close that gap to 400 still, but now going to have an item at least underneath this Viscous. So Sage just trying to do their best to stay in it.
Very curious to see Faustus now on this pocket. It was last time around he was playing on the more supportive entity. This time now from a distance away, Cardi with that shoulder charge, barely able to get out of the action. Be very careful around those denizens. They are more than happy to take a bite out of you here. Macron, though, on a really nice defensive stance there, on a punch out and away here. Meanwhile, Faustus far too deep here, could potentially be caught out. It's just a bit of a pocket case away from saving the day, and Macron picked apart just as quickly. Fantastic separation there from these two to really throw in some confusion to the mix.
They're going even further to take the camps of Purdue, so that is really going to limit Cardi and Macron's early spirit, early spirit advantage. It's going to allow for Northwood now to just scale a little bit further. This pocket's going to get more dangerous. The Shiv's going to get more dangerous, and I think for Brayden really showing that, you know, or our Faustus really showing that, you know, the pocket can really battle against an Abrams and still not be worried is something to take note for Purdue, because Cardi was doing a great job on this Abrams at taking those 1v1s back in game 1.
And I do want to point out that we are at that scaling position with Icy now, already securing his first initial kill there onto Sage. The lead has exploded. What was 400 has now become 1400. This is something that's going to lead to an early telekinesis and notably an immediate guarding here. I can't imagine Sade escapes away, a puddle punch to the skies with the card on its backside. It will inevitably be the movement from this, but it doesn't change the fact that Icy is a problem. And this time around, compared to the Warden, this is a problem that doesn't go away.
I was going to say exactly that. I mean, this Wraith is only going to continue to get worse and worse. Brayden, with the killing blow, just barely misses out on taking down Macron. That's the healing right for the Ivy, but it's still not enough. Faustus follows up, and while that's going down, Jester does trade onto Slew over towards Purple, but I don't think it's going to be enough for this McGinnis to take that Guardian down. Wow. I do like this from Brayden, though, looking to take a different look onto Cardi, see if you can finish off this Abrams, and not with the killing blow, so you're not able to finish that off as easily as you would have hoped for, but you do back Cardi down for a second.
I do want to point out that there was a heavy rotation from Malachite there to play around that park side. They're seemingly learning a little bit of the lesson from this first game, with Jester picking up that initial kill there. They are being a lot more respectful of that potential scaling power. And while I don't think, personally, the McGinnis gets just as bad, you still have to be respectful. A combustion over the side comes up a bit too short for Nocturnal this time around. Could have been maybe another security for Purdue there.
Yeah, two really smart ultimates. I mean, if you land that concussive combustion from Nocturnal, then you have a chance to pick out Malachite, but the paradoxical swap just allowing you for that extra escape back into your lane. That's really good tech from Malachite, and something that you expect from these tired?
It's potential.
Everybody fat fingers once in a while.
Yeah, maybe misclicks. Either way, that's a big tool, not available for utilization. Telekinesis online from Icy. Cardi does get a bit further away, but I mean, you're still stuck.
Those card tricks do just so much damage. Macron, I was going to say not long for this fight, but able to escape, and that Guardian just continuing to bleed out in Greenwich. And for the side of Purdue, it looks like they're calling for some assistance from Broadway. The Lady Geist going to pan over Ian, maybe looking to provide some support, but will end up moving back to Nocturnal, who falls down, left alone over at Broadway. Now you definitely need to turn around if you're Ian.
This is big problems here for the side of Purdue, constantly pressured here by just about every single matchup. It's literally just Jester who's notably slowed things down here, and it's off the hand of really, really good control of lane spacing, right? Sending some of these lanes forward for optimal rotations for potential ganks. Icy getting involved early, you saw there on Greenwich, and of course Malachite being just about everywhere here, notably on that Paradox. It makes for a disgusting start, and Faustus, once again, Now another kill picked up. I believe that makes 3. Sends out the Affliction. Just barely, I think, going to miss out on Cardi there. It is going to be Braden who instead finishes the job.
Seems like Purdue are struggling even more than in game 1 for this early side.
And that's
Jester. Oh, that's exactly what you're looking for from Northwood. We talked about maybe swapping out Tired and Icy when it came down to the lanes. Well, Icy just gets the job done against Sage and then eventually makes their way over to Jester. So you can see that Icy definitely making some moves with this Wraith pick.
And there's Malachite. Barely caught out there almost. Nocturnal could have sustained one of the first pickups of the match here, and instead results in nothing. Meanwhile, Jester on the other side, that heavy barrage, it's strong, but it's nothing compared to the absolute onslaught we saw from Haze last time around. Instead, now a double pickup over here towards Park. Sage will falter all the same. Braden will absolutely bump house here. It's 60% resistances, but I mean, it's nothing in the face of 100 health.
No, nothing at all. And now begs the question, Zephyr, for Purdue is, yeah, we know what this team does when you have Jester on the Haze absolutely scaling to the max, but when you don't have Jester carrying your team, where do you make those changes to step up together rather than individually? Because we did see those team plays back in game number 1, but they were definitely put on a pedestal with the performance that Jester was having.
Absolutely, and I will say, it makes it hard to analyze the real power potential of Purdue. We make some calls regarding Cardi early, notably on that Abrams, and potentially maybe some hard scaling potentials between both the likes of Flash and Nocturnal here, but the reality is, if everyone is feeding this one out, I mean, it leads to a tough game. Now, the one saving grace is the fact that in terms of your power scalers, they are all still close on the souls. Bostis from above, though, with a couple barrage hits there, makes it look like it might be the end. Love the stun from Macron there, but you have to respect the pocket all the same. It's still a chunk of damage, that Affliction. I mean, it's just going to force this lane apart here.
It is. Purdue grasping at straws. You see the cloak is going to take Cardi so far down. Into the case you go. The damage is astronomical. It's a fight in punches. You go for the parry, but oh, that's an issue for Faustus. He's going to be traded out from Sage there. Macron did land the stone form, and although Macron still falls, it's enough for at least the kill onto Faustus.
But I'm glad that
well, it's somewhat of a semblance of return. You see Jester getting involved, and it was what I was pointing out. Even if we've seen heavy kill presence on the side of Northwood, it's early game. Soul potential for the kills is not very strong here. What I am looking for, though, is now with this early dominance, what does Northwood do? They're already on the earned potential there. Can we secure something a bit bigger? Combustion comes up just a bit too short on the other side.
Yeah, you just want to keep this lead. And the urn is moving. It is on the side of Purdue. So you have to go into enemy territory. And with that soul lead not being too much of a disparity just yet, only 6k, it's something that Northwood will feel confident with, but it's not a sure deal just yet. So I like the call to drop that urn.
Cardi really getting into the face of things there. Going to take a huge chunk of that damage, more notably even from the Guardian there. Have to play respectful, even with a bit of the shielding now available. Tries to heal that one up just a little bit with that Siphon Life, and even still, not quite in that kind of vitality situation just yet. The only real major healing tool there, of course, being a like of the melee lifesteal. We'll have to wait for the itemization.
Yeah, Icy just does not want to stop on this Wraith pick. It's giving me Mirage vibes from what we saw versus St. Clair. And Nocturnal made good use of this Wraith back in game number 1, and to see Icy excel in it as well is no surprise. It's tough to see it fall out of the hands of Purdue at this point, but you do pick up the Guardian over at York finally for Sage, so now you can stop really worrying about this wave getting pushed into your walker. You have a little bit of breathing room to move around if you're this viscous. Now looking to provide some support, but there's a lot of support that you need to pick up. And here they go into Greenwich. Braden just chipping down on towards Cardi, looking for 2. Slice and Dice bringing down Macron. Cloak's going to TP in the backline for Faustus, and Macron will fall. So will the Guardian.
This time around, it's not just Icy. Faustus has absolutely dominated this lane-to-lane matchup here, and it continues to get worse and worse. Meanwhile, Tired on the other side, playing respectful, notably with Jester. Nocturnal, though, looking just as low, and with this full rotation, it will be Braden continuing on that aggressive sense. It's that full highlight of the Shiv as well here. These are all power pickups that are in their full stride forward. Malachite to jump alongside them continues to butcher the likes of Purdue here, and they're already sustained for the Walker. A kudzu bomb falls short there due to good walls.
Yeah. Good wall is going to stop that one, forcing away Northwood, but they do proc for a fight over at Broadway. Walker, Cardi goes down. The Storm Cloud was actually brought in by Tired. He's going to end up getting traded out by Flash. The lady guys at least on damage control for Purdue. As that got a little bit scary. Northwood, they were fighting on two fronts. You had Icy 2v1ing over in Uptown York, trying to poke at that Walker. And I thought it was going to be enough to allow that Walker on Broadway to be destroyed. But that is good for Purdue to hold their line.
I will say this is one of the major last chances, I will say, for Purdue to figure things out here and now. Notably, the gold still very, very secure on a lot of those major carries. It's not absolutely ballooned yet, but we're getting to that 15-minute mark, and this is where those kills really start to shine. That's when the soul lead that you get from them, and more importantly, the map control that you've opened up in the early game, leads to extra camps and an extra lead that is hard to come back from. For Cardi, it is the engage, though. The chase from Icy. Can you defend it?
No, you can't. Icy just chasing down Macro. Oh! Here comes the Snow Globe, and you've trapped two. And you're fighting against what is quite a hefty Wraith. Gooball now looking to stun up the rest. Allow for an exit from Cardi. The chase is on from Northwood, but not sure if they're going to be able to take down Cardi in time into the briefcase. That is some damage from Faustus.
Really nice.
The concussive combustion catches Faustus up top. Traded by Icy. Cardi still wants to fight this one out. The punching not going to get through the damage. That is this Kelvin and Shiv duo. Yes, Tired will end up going down onto the side of Park, but this has been Northwood just forcing through these lanes.
But it's not clean, though. Purdue has picked up multiple in response from this. Braden, Faustus, Tired, all down from the depths. Listen, while yes, Macron will be picked up in response, it's not as dominant as a team fight as I would like to see here. You're still building gold, notably on Flash, of all people here. A supportive entity, someone we saw last time around really making a name for himself on the Paradox, is starting to become a slight problem on this Lady Geist. We talk about that power scaling with the spirit control. This is something that even from afar can potentially become a greater issue.
Yeah.
Heavy vitality prioritization, going to be very healthy now for a lot of these fights here. And of course, at any given point, that soul exchange could be a huge difference maker.
And we did ask the question of, you know, if not Jester, then who? And for Ian to be stepping up in this Lady Geist, it's something that I'm sure fans at Purdue are breathing a little sigh of relief to find. But now Jester is going to be chasing a few shadows here. You do get the urn picked up by Tired, so it looks like Northwood going to make a run at it. It is an equal urn, but Greenwich going to lose their Guardian. That's Purdue finally going to get that flex slot opened up, the first one, and now it looks like Ian going to try to work alongside Cardi to get this Kelvin.
I don't think there's much work being done there. They've hung up their hats off of that one. The Kelvin, just a slippery beast at that. I still like the fact that Purdue, though, are playing more defensively here. They've got some of their strongest picks waiting on the edge of that urn. Tired to be the one to deliver. Already setting up there. Full response from this roster. Have to be respectful. With Jester down, might be the walk away from this.
This is something that you're going to fight. You have Icy all the way over and towards Parks. They're going to go in on this one. They're going to go combustion. Now in the Snow Globe. Flash falls, but it should be a trade. Slew goes down. Tired, weak. Has to escape. Can the 7 get away? It looks like you will be able to. Malachite going to land the kinetic carbine onto Sage, but right now Northwood are on the back foot of this fight as Cardi's going to activate here. The Abrams trying to chip away, but Braden, the Shiv, at least delaying enough to take Cardi down. Trades are just so back and forth right now as this fight is very messy on both sides. The urn still being pushed by Tired. It will be collected. And Purdue, you do not want to lose these last two members.
No, not at all here. But like you brought up, wasn't perfect. Such an odd separation of that fight, notably between the height back over towards downtown and across more directly on Earn's side here. And you have two separate exchanges that ultimately, while yes, ends up in a successful Earn take for Northwood, is really nothing to write home about. You're still seeing some explosive leads here, and major targets, like I said with Flash, still starting to come online. The problem, though, is it is starting to get a bit more expansive, and the truth is, Icy is on Wraith. If we're talking about one of the best primary scalers in this game currently, we got to talk about the Wraith. I mean, I will say Nocturnal in this Infernus has looked good, but we're still waiting for the signs of life that would make me really confident in her play to say, okay, you can match this up toe to toe here, and being behind 6k souls is not something that would reaffirm that.
I don't think we're going to see that until Icy joins the team fights. A lot of these team fights, Icy's been split pushing, forcing Jester away to match that, and we haven't had, you know, Icy really get tested against the masses. So until Icy joins the fights, that is going to be something that we're worrying. Telekinesis is up, Slew or Sage is being watched. He shouldn't need this ultimate to clean the rest up. No, the card trick will get the rest done, but as they trade, now you might look for the ultimate.
Potentially some catches there, Macron on the other side. That's something that they'll probably be unable to secure there. Meanwhile, with the rest of Purdue showing up to play around this Walker from the height, though, it's a perfect situation for Icy to absolutely shred there. Just barely doesn't take it away as that heavy barrage comes in to pressure defensively there. It's something that'll save the Walker for just a moment longer, but I want to point out how deep on Greenwich and Broadway you have the rest of Northwood pushing. This is something that's going to be very hard to hold.
The even Park is moving minions right up to your walkers, so you're spread thin right now if you're Purdue. I like this from Cardi going in onto Fossis, lands the punch, and actually avoiding a lot of this damage that Fossis is throwing at him. This Abrams, good for the sustain and good to keep this Walker up.
Yes, I mean, it's all at that point. I would be surprised if we see a kill. It's just to keep this one alive here. Sage, notably, do want to point out, does have that superior cooldown. So we talk about that safety that we have really built upon, notably with this Viscous. Might be super behind on the souls, but has invested a whole third of their itemization towards it. Icy, though, telekinesis is hard to beat. Just hard to beat. You need something to survive it potentially later on, and Unstoppable would be huge just as a vitality pickup to prevent that from being an issue.
You don't have the telekinesis this time. 1 versus 1. Macron now getting walked on by a second. You have to get out of here. You do have Nocturnal on your wing, but it's a 3 versus 2, so Purdue have the numbers to push York in. The Walker goes down. Flex slot number 2 for Northwood, and I don't think they're going to stop here. Malachite takes Broadway, and Purdue are struggling at finding footing.
This is tough here. Ultimately, in the end, Slew really providing what was a nice supportive entity between things like that rescue beam, of course, and having alongside the healing booster. Makes it so hard to actually lock down pickups like Icy in these situations here, and it makes for what you would assume is a surefire, successful wipe into, well, maybe not the best situation. In the end, single walkers up on the side, and now a major Earn on the other end, likely not to be secured by Northwood, but with one Walker left standing here, it still is an offered potential. Purdue now starting to slip in where they need to be. I just still can't help but bring up Flash. I really am curious to see what Lady Geist brings to these fights, because they are neck and neck alongside Icy.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it's like, even though you're neck and neck with Icy down 2k, then Icy is, what, 9k up over Jester?
Yeah.
8k up over Nocturnal. Like, Icy has quite a lead over the majority, and that's going to allow for Northwood to feel some confidence in pushing this Earn. Jester's getting caught yet again in the team fight. That's going to back them down, and while this happens, the Greenwich Walker is over. So all walkers destroyed for Purdue. Northwood looking to do their walk of victory into the base as the Earn goes down. Everything's pointing to the Timberwolves.
Meanwhile, a big separation on this fight leads to what might be some nice pickups. It'll start with Nocturnal, a big damage provider, and you have to slow the pace here. You can see from a distance away, it is a little bit of those Malice stacks coming through, but ultimately picking the rest of this team off piece by piece. You may be 23 souls ahead, but I mean, that's nothing to write home about. Now, with a major lead, here. 2 members down, yeah, you could walk to mid-boss and just potentially secure this. But, hey, steal potential is there.
Yeah, you have the Kutsu Bomb. You still have the Lady Geist if you do want to throw in an Essence Bomb. But it's going to take a lot of a fumble for Northwood to lose out on this mid-boss. Nobody's even stepping up to this one for Purdue. They have to worry about these lanes. You still have Park pushed all the way to Uptown Walker, and this is the right call for Purdue. Although you could steal it, I don't think it would really matter, just in case it didn't work out.
In the end now, we're playing defensive, as survivable as you could imagine. And what we talked about is being this 15 to 18 minute mark where the kills and the team fight prowess has truly put just about everyone online. We were talking just about Icy. I mean, Fossis, of course, with major leads in the early game, but when we take a look at just about everyone else, their itemization, souls, and AP are now just as much or akin after some of these great team fights here. And this is where we start to see that gap absolutely explode. 40k in a difference here now with a massive 29 AP difference. It is no longer close in return there. And I mean, it's a tough.
You're looking to max out most of your abilities. This Tired's going to be caught. Now trying to escape. Should be no problem, but that's a good ultimate. The seismic impact now chasing him down. Nocturnal's going to finish that kill, and there is kind of step one, but the telekinesis maxed out. That's going to catch 3 of them. Icy jumping right into the deep end and destroying Purdue. I cannot believe what I'm seeing from this Wraith. Absolutely taking over the map.
Just a slaughter here. Slew will finish off the job alongside Nocturnal there, and as Northwood continues to rack up the majority of the Purdue roster here, a 3v5 situation with a quick rejuvenation from the mid-boss means that Northwood are more than happy to potentially walk this one in. Of course, when you've got Raquan completely separated, splitting here, you don't actually have 3. It is a 2v5.
2v5 with 15 seconds up on Jester and Cardi. 22 on Nocturnal. Most likely, you can get both shrines, that last flex slot, and possibly even the Patron. You're pushing it with the Patron, and Macron from above may have just saved the Sapphire Patron itself. Stomping down with the Stone Form onto 2. The Spectral Wall now maybe catching a couple more exits, but the friendly base guardians of the Amber Hands have fallen. And so have the shrines. So not only do Northwood break into the base with the mid-boss buff, but they also have all of their flex slots unlocked, and Purdue only have 1.
I would be worried about it, but they don't even have the money to spend, I'd say. It's going to be something that stutters them just a bit here, but in the end, I mean, at least now going into the defensive end of this game here, something that I've seen as a weakness of Purdue is their lack of effective responses as a full team due to the splitted nature of Northwood's pressure. At least now, they're all going to be shooting for Patron. And when that's the case here, that might be your best setup yet. Granted, being grouped together against, major pickups, notably like that 7, like that major pocket on Fossis here, and of course Icy, which I can only assume has the itemization to just shred through these team fights. It's going to be very, very, very hard, but at least we'll finally get to see probably one of the first put-together team fights from Purdue this entire game.
It's surprising, too, because of how put together they were back in Game 1. I think the shakeup on Jester has definitely dismantled a little bit of composure. The paradoxical swap. Cardi is in trouble. Going to use the shoulder charge, but everybody else is chasing down this Abrams. Malachite has no real care to chase after it, but Ern's being moved by Tired. A team fight's getting forced inside Uptown Broadway. And you lost that Abrams, so you have to give this up if you are Purdue. You cannot chase for the Ern.
This is tough here. It's not even about giving it up. It's just ultimately waiting for your opportunity to strike. And because Northwood can pull the trigger on any one of your mistakes, and you're left to play a defensive game against these setups. And for Tired,
Spectral Wall.
Kind of a bad, but the Spectral Wall separates this one out. Meanwhile, deep engages from the rest of Northwood. They know this is their chance to shine.
Jester's going to find Slew. That's good pick up there with the turrets just bleeding out the Kelvin. Paradoxical
Fire
swap
down.
now onto Sage to the trade there. Tired goes down, so it's a 4-on-3. If you're the side of Purdue, you have the numbers inside of this with the close spawns as well. You're able to get your teammates into the mix. Icy going to be looking to pick up the rest. Malachite providing some support. Jester falls, and now Purdue losing that edge, losing the advantage that they so were looking to hold on to. A couple kills from Ian, but I don't think it's going to matter.
It's still a 2v1 situation. The urn secured in the end. You got to give credit where it's due to Jester, really trying to stunt that fight out for as long as possible around the Spectral wall. But the minute Icy was finally able to get around that Eclipse there, it just became such a deadly fight
Icy.
here.
This is rude. You just can't let this happen if you're carding the seismic impact, just trying to get away and stay alive. But a lot's forced out there from the Abrams just to get away. You're able to get that urn too, and look at this. Icy's sitting on 11k souls, so this Wraith is only going to get more powerful.
I'm very curious to see the itemization. We saw the tier 4 pickups there between things notably like that Diviner's Kevlar alongside the Shadow Weave. These are strong, but in terms of the teamfight-oriented tier 4s that I was waiting to see, we're not quite there yet. Oh, that's
Boundless
an expansive pickup. Boundless Spirit. Just an absolute shred. Shiv alongside that with that escalating exposure for the bleed is something that makes these sustained fights so much more difficult. You'll see Faustus a little bit more balanced, only know the Divine Kevlar, and yeah, there you go. A little pickup in the end for the crippling headshot. That's something to at least give some way, but it just goes to show that with these extra souls, I mean, it is a building problem here, and more importantly, the souls are starting to catch up for Purdue, and now this is where that flex slot issue becomes a problem.
I mean, Faustus building into the crippling headshot, not only helping the pocket, but it also helps Icy too when you have the spirit reduction and the bullet reduction.
Yes.
That is...
It's nasty.
It's nasty for Northwood. I mean, they have the win condition, and I don't know about you, Zephyr, but never have I ever seen a comeback in Deadlock just yet. I don't even think it's possible to make a comeback in Deadlock. So Purdue's gonna have to make some magic happen, and here we go with the soul swap there onto Icy, still able to TP his way out of this one. Now turning around with the card trick. You have the goo ball tracking down a few of these members, and the concussive combust
that's one, that's two.
Stun them
they got
Icy and Tired go down, and Purdue, they're not done yet.
You said you haven't seen a comeback. Well, I'll tell you what, that last fight has let Purdue itching here. It was closer than we expected, and that's all Purdue needed to feel a glimpse of hope. Tired and Icy, two major pickups, maybe not just the strongest, but a big deficit for time on the clock. 30 minutes here. They don't have the waves to push to, once again, like I said, open up those flex slots that are so important, but it just goes to show that the power potential of Purdue is coming online, notably in the hands of Macron as well, by the way. 29k souls has absolutely ballooned as a secondary leader for this team here across this game.
Yeah, the Ivy struggled early too, so it's good to see Macron coming online. The issue kind of bodes, though, is the objectives. You still have a Guardian over on Broadway and every single walker for Northwood, so it's just, you're looking for Purdue. It's not just down to the team fights. It's finding those team fights clean enough that you can shove these lanes and get these objectives.
I'll tell you what, if you're working up against Flash with the soul exchange, you gotta pay respects here, potentially with some silences, with some options across the board, because that's something that spelled a major difference coming off the back end of that last game. Huge shout out, though, to the Mystic Reverb. We're starting to see a little bit of that itemization coming online for that Ivy. Not so much of the bullet build, more so playing towards the spirit. That kudzu bomb spam going to be really impressive, and with the heal bane to go alongside it, makes for these extended team fights when you have a lot of the AoE
Jester
to be a problem.
67-second respawn for Jester. And right now with that pick, yeah, go mid boss. Why not force a fight here if you're Northwood? This is exactly what you'd want, is to set a trap.
It is a big split, though. You do have big investment from Faustus and Braden. They're not super stable there. They're going to have to walk away given how well Purdue's fighting this one out. Faustus already down.
And now for Northwood, the trap has been set and it is sprung. Everybody jumping away from the mid boss to see if they can trade out from Faustus. Macron goes down, Cardi there. Sage follows in suit. And Ian and Nocturnal, they are running back to their spawn. Well, Nocturnal taking a different route, but that mid boss surely will be grabbed now.
This is a big problem. Jester will be up within those 15, but it is still a 3v5 situation. And, you know, we talk about power players. Flash is up on that board, and Nocturnal should be in a position to be more of a threat here. But ultimately, it is a numbers disadvantage with quick resets on the board. This is the best option for Northwood to finally end what has been a very, very tough game to close out.
32 minutes, 47 seconds. And Purdue playing base tower defense.
20 seconds.
Couple of seconds on these respawners. It looks like that patron now looking to transform as they're going to decimate the first form. Players of Purdue should be coming back into this one, so if you can stay alive here, Nocturnal, Ian, and Jester, they should be able to fight this one. It's not going to be done just yet, but Purdue, they're going to be losing out on a lot more than just the patron. Every single base boss going to be destroyed.
They know with the full reset from Purdue, they're not in the best situation with major utilities like that telekinesis and that storm cloud no longer available here. You might as well wait it out. You were in a dominant spot with the mid boss, and you have just cracked this base wide open. One major mistake, one major pick on this side here for Northwood just means you absolutely win this game. Why potentially throw it all away?
And for Purdue, I mean, yeah, maybe you can defend your base, but can you defend your base twice? Because that mid-boss buff, that's going to provide a shorter respawn for Northwood. And they know that this is their chance. Paradoxical swap. It's going to force Cardi out onto the other side. The Spectral Wall catches Malachite now. Can you shut this Paradox down? Macron dies first in this whole tussle. The Storm Cloud is going to force away Purdue, back them into their base, and here comes Northwood to end this game and force a game 3 in this show match. They're going to jump into the pit, and they're going to start poking this away. This one is over.
Ooh, Combustion Deep, though, trying to pin off the damage that they can. Finally arriving is the likes of Icy here. Tired, finally low enough to be picked off, but in the end, the patron even lower. We're going to a game 3.
I'd have it no other way.
Back to bite them so hard from a team that is so good at holding out and so great that even in what could have been a stop against Northwood, they survived. We'll start this draft off just the same way as game 2. We take away Icy's Mirage. We take away Jester's Haze.
And really, like, what else are you going to do here if you're either side? I mean, those are two heroes that you just don't want on the board for either of those characters. So yeah, get them out of here. I think another thing to talk about too, we do have a substitution on the side of Purdue, and it is Monster taking place of Nocturnal heading into this game number 3. Nocturnal, game number 1, fantastic on the Wraith, and even game number 2, I don't really think we saw this Infernus bloom into what could have been, but it seems like Purdue have an idea, and it is the trust there that you trust now Monster to come in and really make that difference for your team.
All right. I'm very curious to see what Monster puts together here. We talked a little bit about Nocturnal and what she offered to the roster, and between pickups like that Wraith and that Infernus, fantastic high, hyper carries. Just needed to see potentially some more aggression out of them. Maybe this is the answer. Something to note, though, is for Purdue, with Bebop back on the board, it's likely that we are reintroducing that one to Cardi, no longer on that Abrams, potentially what we saw out of our semifinal stage.
And again, Abrams is great for Cardi. I think you saw Cardi get picked off one too many times that you would have liked in that last game, but especially in the early portions, allowing those Guardians to just get decimated for the side of Purdue. But this Bebop was very useful versus Thomas, and we saw that Bebop ban actually in game number 1. So obviously Northwood saw that, and they're like, hey, we don't want to deal with this, but they didn't want to deal with the Haze a little bit more. So leaving the Bebop open kind of makes you think maybe we get that IV Bebop gimmick again.
Yeah,
I'd like to see
I'm very
it.
curious. Yeah, I think it could be good. Ultimately, Macron has looked super, super good on this Ivy. It wasn't a strong early game, but still came in with a lot of power potential as we made our way through that game. I'm very curious to see If that Wraith ends up notably on Jester, or if we're still potentially cooking some options, the Great Talon, very strong, very minor changes there. We got a little taste of that earlier on Purdue's side, notably on a player who is not currently with us. It was Esua, who was very, very good, notably on that Great Talon. Still a strong pickup. I'm just now, I mean, we're definitely turning this one for a loop. We are shaking things up from different pickups for Purdue, different players to completely different picks. It's a Hail Mary opportunity.
And they also take the Kelvin away from Slew and the Wraith away from Icy, so that kind of leads the question of where is the heroes going on the side of Northwood. We got an Infernus now, the Paradox as well. The McGinnis is coming back for maybe Slew to run. I'd imagine Slew's going to grab that McGinnis as quick as possible. But for the rest of them, if Infernus isn't going over towards Icy, if it's maybe going back towards Tired instead of that 7, then for Icy, I don't want to see you go back to that Warden. Yeah, right up close and personal. That Warden was tough in the early game, but in the late game, it left a lot to be desired on what Icy's capabilities really could be. But Lady Guys going over to Purdue. Maybe we're seeing it go back towards Ian. Great farming coming out of that Lady Geist. Maybe hope to see a little bit more. You and I were talking about that during the break, that Lady Geist had so much potential that we didn't get to see.
Now, this will answer a question with Northwood now. Tired, Braden, those potential options. Icy as well. The Warden tells me that Tired is probably going to be on that Infernus. Icy to be playing the Warden here again. And what I can only assume is probably a Shiv pickup for Braden if we're going to go down the list.
Never going to anything else.
You know, it seems like a surefire select here. On the other side for Purdue, I mean, we're cooking. Obviously, Cardi back, potentially on the Bebop, Flash on that Lady Geist, but everyone else in a complete tussle here for what they end up finally putting together. It's going to be a complete mix of a match for Purdue.
But it's exactly the same composition from game 1 for Northwood, the game that they lost to Purdue. Yeah, Jester versus Icy is going to be a fun one to watch, and Jester's actually on the Warden. I'm not sure if these are flipped around. No.
I was about to say
the Warden went to Northwood and the Wraith went to Purdue in the drafting phase, so this is completely different than what we were expecting. It's kind of swapped around from what we were expecting jumping into this and what we broke down. And now with Jester on the Warden, it's just...
Hold on. Okay, just want to make a confirmation. This is not...
It was flipped, okay.
This is flipped. Our drafts are correct from the earlier drafting phase. Jester is notably going to... There you go. I mean, should be fixed there, yeah. So Jester should be on that Wraith. Icy on that Warden. This is...
worried for a second.
There we go. Okay, so in the end... Confusion aside, we will start with something clear as day. Icy leads the start there over on Park, and notably, it is Flash in response. And for the rest of Northwood, continuing this one on here, Admiral Rakan with that Bebop in their hands, a new pickup instead. Starting out very well.
Yeah, it is, and I like this from the Lady Geist of Ian, and now with Monster on the Great Talon, look at that early damage presence that they had against Slew and Foss as you eliminate the Infernus completely, and Slew just barely slips away with, I'd say, 1% health. So this is Purdue who have actually kicked things up a notch when it comes to that early game damage. Yes, you're kind of losing those fights when it comes to those individual lanes, but I think for Icy, you might expect him to turn up fast, but with this Wraith pick on Jester, it's just going to be a matter of time before this Wraith comes online.
I do want to highlight, we were very wrong. It might be the same composition, but it is a switch up here. Well, we'll see how this plays out once more with the bomb on the other side. A bit of damage away, 42 across, barely does Braden escape. And meanwhile, on the other side, thinks Jester with a pickup. I do want to highlight this before we get caught by something here. It is a big switch. It is going to notably be Faustus, I believe, from what I can see from draft here, on the Infernus once again.
Yep.
But we make a switch. Instead of Tired being on the other pickup there with Viscous, he's on going to be McGinnis, Slew on the Viscous. So a slight change here. Same comp, different players.
Yeah. just switching things around to maybe what feels a little bit more comfortable for them. And this early game so far, 3 minutes and 30 seconds in, has been a lot better. Icy actually traded, or got trades back and forth. Jester did take Icy down just previously, and now Brayden has actually been caught too. So Purdue are stepping up in more than just the kills. They are actually shoving these lanes and forcing Northwood back.
Right, and surprisingly, it's Macron and Monster who I'd like to highlight more than anything. Monster, albeit not pick up kills yet, has looked, well, as you can see there, terrifying with those charge shots, absolutely decimating Tired, which is, mind you, while a strong pick, in a really rough spot. We've seen Tired capitalize time in, time out. You do not want to be handing that one away to someone like Monster on this great Talon.
Luckily, you do have a self-heal if you are tired. Not going to sit in that self-heal, and wow,
oh my
this is
gosh.
what we hate about playing against a great Talon. The Guided Owl, not going to get there right away, but
not
maybe
yet,
can wait this cube out. Surely can wait this cube out.
Still looking,
where'd he
trying
go?
to secure it. I mean, that's the hard part.
It is the hard part, trying to go back there and find it. But the chip damage that you get from a Lady Geist and a Great Talon in lane, it's probably one of the most annoying duos that you can play against.
We were wondering, with Monster rejoining Purdue here to play this final game out, what would we see? We didn't really get a lot of implication from that first setup, and now, with this combo, like you said, it is already Flash here. With that first setup, a big performance out of this last game on the Lady Geist. Just wasn't allowed to perfectly shine due to early feeding. Now this time around, leading the pack against a very aggressive Monster, and potentially what could be another major Guardian here.
Yeah, I was going to say, the issue's not the kills there. Tired, we've been known to struggle in that early game. The issue is that this Guardian is pretty much gone for the side of Northwood. Over in Broadway, that duo is just laying it down when it comes to that damage. Still a little bit of a tug of war over on Parkside. The Wraith versus Warden. That's going to be a fun one. Who's going to work out with the advantage after that? Definitely a lot more health on the Guardian for Icy rather than Jester. But here comes that aggressive concussive combustion into the Guardian there from Faustus. It's not going to collect any kills, but it is going to help this wave be pushed into the Guardian.
Curious to see what itemization was there to potentially save Cardi. I'm going to make the assumption that it was a bit of an AP leveling on the Frost Grenade to give them potentially some heals. I do see it. You can see the little ring around the ability there, so that was potentially there. But no, actually, level 2 up there, minor healing. Okay.
Yeah, that's the healing
Macron,
Nova
another
there
kill.
to get him back.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. Healing Nova. That was all.
Cardi's here to help. And over onto the Kelvin. I like the Kelvin pick for Purdue. So far, it's been a lot better from game number 1. That Guardian has fallen on the side of York and should fall over towards Broadway as well. Faustus forcing back the Mo and Krill. And now the triple up here for Greenwich. It's a little bit of help from the Shiv as well. Everybody grouping up from York into Greenwich for Northwood, maybe to push into the Guardian of Purdue. See if they can get a trade on the map and get a little bit of objective souls going their way. But now that Bebop is here, gotta watch out for those hooks.
Yeah, Macron has been just nasty this game. We're not putting enough respect on the Admiral over here. Has been decimating Brayden for Northwood. That's the 3rd kill, I believe, in response there. And it's not so much about the souls, not so much about the early advantage. It's just the fact that the control from this Bebop has been absolutely perfect. And now, like you said, with those rotations, going to be making their way back to York Avenue for now, but giving the opportunity to make these constant cross-map implications already back into Greenwich.
Yeah, Macron still looking for those hooks. It actually catches Brayden, so that's a little bit of damage onto the Shiv. It's going to give some respect now to Northwood. Voss is going to take a different angle, but Icy eliminates the Park Guardian. So looks like Jester is losing this tug of war when it comes to the objective battle. Souls are still even, so Jester not worried about that just yet. But this is going to give a chance maybe for Icy to also leave lane and start putting pressure elsewhere.
Yeah. Something to work with there. A healing booster now picked up, notably. We just got to check that out on the side of Party on this loot. Once again, the hook. I mean, just perfect. I mean, Macron is just a nuisance in any lane we've seen here, and it's allowing for so much space to exist, and, well, at least anywhere we see, and we'll disappear over to York for now just to clear that wave out, but it's going to be harder and harder. You already know Brayden's weak. Malachite is going to get the same preferential treatment. As the reason this exists is because we've given up completely on the other side with Broadway.
Ian's
we
in
are
trouble.
three-piecing that.
Looking over towards Park. This Lady Geist is overextended. Here comes the concussive combustion, and on top of that, the goo ball.
There's the slow.
Get the swap from the Lady Geist and the assistance now from Ian, but is it going to be enough to maybe switch this around? Lady Geist just trying to live the last stand, procced by Icy, and yeah, you will be able to live if you are Ian. Jester helping out with that. Brayden did end up going down for Northwood, so struggling on that Broadway side still is Northwood, and you do have a triple setup from Purdue trying to push into this Greenwich lane.
This is such a big problem for them. The fact that they've invested so much to play towards Broadway and then fail to make that gank happen over towards the side of Park. I mean, you get to see why this macro falls apart so quickly. The three-piece on the other end of things for Purdue are more than happy to take advantage of your faltering momentum, and Flash picks up a kill. There's another owl. Make it 2 for Flash on the other side. The bird finds the wall. It doesn't matter, you know? There's wins. Yeah, there's kills.
Snowball, Sage outside looking in, but it just seems like this was enough to allow Macron to escape. Purdue have completely flipped the script from game number 2. This is a new look that is almost refreshing, and you gotta be worried Brayden's getting no communication on this. The hook onto the Shiv, and here comes the Mo and Krill. You still have the combo, and that Shiv's gonna be melted down.
There he goes again. I wonder how much of a that's begun. I mean, it's something there, but it just goes to show the difference in pressure from Purdue this time around. Shout out to Icy, finding word before the TP. Does secure Jester nonetheless there, but with a 1K difference, surprisingly, while this has stunted Jester and Icy both respectively, it has allowed the remnants of Purdue, who are now investing a lot more of their strengths on Macron, Flash, and Monster, to be so much more explosive in this lobby by stopping Icy in their tracks.
Monster is scary. I mean, I don't think I've seen him miss his one.
I've seen him miss this.
Yeah, I've seen him miss a couple guiding owls, but the charge shots are good. So wherever this owl decides to go,
yeah,
Icy, there we go. And Icy should be gone. I don't imagine him getting away from the Lady Geist and the Mo and Krill, but it is not him that wards it off. It's the assistance that comes through from Faustus to force them back.
Yeah, this is what I'm just trying to say. You know, it's this elevation of the other players from Purdue this time around that just is a highlight of how this composition has been put together. And while, yes, we're not getting that explosive start from Jester, it just goes to show how talented this roster is, and that truly, it's what feels like anybody can be a star here. For Northwood, though, there's still time on the clock. We talk about early KP. Malachite's sure to find one.
And Tired's going to be running the urn. That urn is actually into the side of Northwood, so it's going to be a chance to gain some serious souls, especially if they collect this Broadway Guardian in the Uptown. That thing is going to be deleted. The Hyper Beam, hopefully to force them away, but that Guardian just continues to burn down. Icy's going to find Macron, so Hyper Beam is deleted, and the Snow Ball is actually, or the Snow Globe is actually going to be used to hold this Guardian for a few more seconds. It'll end up dropping, and the urn has arrived to its drop-off spot, so Northwood in an instant have climbed their way back.
Really, really nice there from Northwood, taking advantage of that early pick to convert for macro potential. And, you know, Purdue try. Frozen Shelter is a way to delay the objectives, but the gathering of this team just isn't quite the pick that they need. So this is what I was trying to say before that all exploded. Early game advantages are important, right? Because they do at least dictate the way a map is controlled here. But when we talk about the power potential of these individual mystics, it is a lot more balanced than we give credence to. Yes, you will have those who are far behind like Braden and Sage right now, but the reality is, on average, you have a lot of playmaking tools still available.
Icy's in deep here. The binding word onto the Lady Geist, but have to watch out for the combo that comes in. Cubed
Good
up
save.
with the telekinesis, everything getting dumped in towards Icy here just to get rid of this Warden, and Slew trying his best to provide an escape plan here. The Goop Ball just knocking everybody up, and that is going to be the escape from Northwood, successful as they're fighting this now from the outside in. Malachite's going to drop on down, still being chased a little bit, but the handshakes come out, and it looks like they're going to settle that.
In the end, the farm for Central off of the museum is going to be handed off over to Purdue here, but credit where it's due to Slew. Could have been a kill to go alongside it, and Slew makes sure that that is a safe exchange between both the cube and the goo ball there. So it's just another example of how, effective Viscous can be in these supportive situations. Still, though, hasn't changed the fact that we're seeing very oppressive pushing here in these central lanes, both Greenwich and Broadway. I'd love to see this one maybe extend out. You've got a very low Guardian, but instead, oh no, you have completely locked Tired down.
You thought for a second, I think everybody, when they play, has that idea of, oh, I'm going to sneak into the underground basement of the opponent's side and steal their camp. Well, if you make too much noise and just one person walks by and hears it, that's GG's for you. There's no escaping that.
Yeah, sadly, it's not even a sneak in there. You're just trying to clear. Trying to clear your camps there for Tired, and in the end, it goes to show the control of the map still heavily in favor of Purdue, allows them to do this. Now Icy, finally, good lockdowns on Monster. A slippery old man to catch, though. Icy actually pulls away, getting a whiff of the Purdue action who arrives.
And Icy knows that the rest of the team's not too far away from this one. Telekinesis onto who? It is going to be the Icy caught back out. And the heavy barrage, it will not walk them away. The spectral wall is going to divide Macron. He doesn't have any of the stamina to climb over it, so they are going to take their sights back over towards Greenwich, where there is a little bit of a team fight, a scuffle, if you might say, going on between the two teams. As Jester just poking and prodding at them. The card trick into the guided owl. Cardi's going to find Slew, and now here comes the rest. They are chasing them down the Greenwich lane and finding Braden as well. And it's major pickups from Purdue as they have 2 eliminations on the board.
This is very clean. Icy was one of those eliminations to go alongside that, so 3 total off of that exchange there. And in some of these earlier fights, we've yet to see a really dominant lead like that. As a result, a dominant lead early, a dominant fight early means a mid-boss in your pocket. One of the earliest we've seen in this best of 3, 16 minutes. The steal potential is there. Around the edge.
Looks like they're setting up to fight this.
We'll see.
Northwood may want to look in on this one. No, it's just going to be, hey, how's it going? See you later. Have fun with that. They smack it and pack it. And Purdue now, with that mid-boss buff, has so much to work with going forward. This is Purdue really stepping up in Game 3.
It's just some of the best performance we have seen thus far from Purdue. It seems like there's nowhere they have failed. Literally everyone outside of Flash. Monster Macron, Jester getting online now with the Souls, and great supportive efforts from Cardi and Sage. Piece by piece, they are decimating Northwood here. And now they get to open the map up.
Sage swapping away from that solo lane. How delightful has it been seeing this Mo and Krill provide that support?
It's about time. We talked about the access to things like that combo and how it fell short in that matchup against Icy. And while Purdue still won that game, it just shows now in a position where you have that as an accessible tool to get into the action alongside major pickups. It's making this so hard for Northwood to get involved, especially when you look at the fact, like, Braden should not be this far behind. Tired
Yeah.
and Slew are nowhere to be seen in terms of their soul exchange, but still supportive. In the end, you're relying so much on Faustus, Malachite, and Icy to get the job done in a situation where they're not receiving the adequate peel that they need to survive Purdue and a lot of these exchanges.
Setting snare.
I mean, I totally agree, and I think, you know, Brayden was a big focus point back in Game 1 on the Shiv. It just was not doing enough to assist Icy on this Warden pick, and the Warden cannot do it all alone. This time, at least we can put some highlights onto the Northwood players like Faustus and Malachite, that they're keeping up with Icy when it comes to this soul farming. I mean, you don't need a Viscus to farm that much, but you do need this Shiv to start finding some opportunities with that killing blow. Follow up Icy in these opportunities, but Malachite, hey, what are you going to do there? I mean, that is the Bebop special.
It's part of the reason we did see Banned out coming into that initial game before we got so headstrong on the Haze. I was surprised that we didn't see follow through. Finally, Walkers, but from the gank in behind, Northwood looked for responses, but the damage just isn't there.
Faustus in with the concussive combustion. It's going to be met by the frozen shelter of Cardi. Cube down slow, looking to get away, punch back to the rest of the team. The Divine Barrier, 2 safeties, so only losing out on Malachite and the Walker. That is a heavy blow to lose the Walker, but at least they hold their lives.
I love that from Jester, by the way. The middle of that fight, one that is confidently defended by Purdue, sends the wave crashing into this Walker, takes away a quarter of its health in the meanwhile, and just as quickly as that is, the forced response from Northwood, you know, scrapping at their feet to respond to this, it is immediately Flash here and Sage rotate into York, putting in damage where it counts, and probably sending this York Avenue Walker on its way home.
Like, I'm going to start calling Bebop, Mo, and Krill Shaq and Kobe. I mean, the way that you got Macron just tossing them up and Sage grabbing them with that combo. It's just, it's a tough one to deal with if you're Northwood here, but it's really Macron who, back in game number 2, although Purdue was really falling far behind and Macron on the Ivy was struggling in that early game, towards the end when Purdue were stalling out their base, I think the big saving grace was that Ivy that Macron was playing. And although Ivy maybe wasn't providing that much in that early game, now with the Bebop, you're seeing the skill of Admiral Macron really shine.
And you know what else you see shine? The glass cannon in Macron's pocket. Yeah. That is not an itemization you take lightly into an exchange there. It makes this at least frenzy of combos between the Hyper Beam, the Sticky Bomb, and those uppercuts be that much more meaningful when you get into those pick situations. And it's the reason why we see Macron 9-in-1 coming out of this game for Purdue. You can see I see Shiv. Brayden doesn't want you to see him. He's sick of you seeing him.
Yeah, comms are on point right now for Purdue. Spectral Wall is actually going to catch Macron.
Oh!
And Monster's got to be careful because everybody's chasing down this great Talon. Tired, looking to track him. Actually trapped right there, so not able to follow just properly yet. A little bit of damage over towards Park.
Purdue
as
collapsing.
You actually have collapsed on towards this Lady Geist, but is the Lady Geist still with her ultimate active? You're going to get the paradoxical swap. Even if you use your ult, you are not going to survive. So I like this call to just run away right now. Try to delay the inevitable and force them into the basement where the rest of your team is waiting. So Malachite says, hey, wall's up. Let's get away.
Woo! It's a spectral wall there, but you got to be respecting the likes of Purdue here. They have not utilized enough utility for this to still not be a problem. Heavy barrage in the end from Tired, going to be the defensive angle here. I mean, it's good, but in the end, it just highlights another major weakness from the likes of Northwood there. They invest so much time off of that take on to Flash, they don't even see the complete wraparound from Purdue coming off of Broadway that just picks them apart piece by piece.
And you're having the York Walker for Purdue being crashed into, but both the Greenwich and the Park Walker being crashed into for Northwood. So they're running the urn. They're trying to clean up their base a little bit. And this is going to be a spot where maybe that soul lead will be cut down a little bit again, but the same will be said about Northwood that I said about Purdue back in game number 2, is that you not only have to win these fights, you have to do it clean because you still have a Guardian active on the side of Purdue. So they have to crack through that Guardian just to get to the Walkers. And the Walkers are total conversation in their own right.
Well, In the end, still options ahead. It's not a massive swing of a gold lead. It's just a lot cemented here, notably on Jester and Macron, and that's something that has spelled out an issue, but I will highlight that there has been some good opportunities for some solo picks. Macron was caught out there at the beginning of that fight. If we hadn't invested on the chase as much there, Northwood looks a lot better coming off of that exchange from Broadway over to Park Avenue. So, still, it is going to get a little bit more dicey. We're at that 23-minute mark. If you see these kills continue to explode, this is where the soul stacking really begins.
It does. And I think both teams are going to be recognizing that as Purdue just continues to shove lanes, and that's separating Northwood, keeping them distracted from everywhere else. You see a split push coming up from Macron over towards Greenwich. Jester holding off the Walker on York, and nobody on Northwood really getting any objective presence. They just have to worry about playing cleanup the whole time.
In the end, we do see a slight rotation from Macron over there towards the York side to match the numbers advantage. It isn't going to be much of a pickup here, and especially with all the denizens back on the map, it's likely that we see Purdue. I mean, they could pull away probably and just clean this one up, in my opinion.
I had it flipped for a second. Cardi was saving the Walker.
He's fine. He's fine. He's just. I think this is just going to be a wrap and clean here from everybody.
It's been a lot of Deadlock to watch, but we're still nowhere close to being finished between these two just yet. Even though Purdue may have taken down a couple of those Walkers, they still are not out of the danger zone.
Something that I need to see from Northwood here is this is still within the realm of control. We need to cement some potential flex slots for the end game. This is a team that is capable of turning this around, but if they don't secure the itemization potential now, we get into a situation where come late game, they don't even have a chance there. I love the itemization for Vostis. You see that ricochet. Well, it needs to be supported. We need to see, I mean, the bleed to go along with it and a few other things here. So I want to see them make some good pushes. I want to see them make a macro response here because, you know, Purdue is just choking you out.
I got so excited for a second. I mean, you hear that sound and you're like, oh, who's this time? Who's getting picked up this time? But not this time for Macron. Vostis is actually going to grab bridge item, but in turn, it's his life. Jester, the telekinesis used to isolate the Infernus, and that's going to be a 50-second respawn timer. Guided Owl sent in onto Malachite. Monster's going to be able to finish off the Paradox, and so has the Shiv. Fallen down into the graveyard of Northwood. This is looking scary.
These are high cooldowns here. 40-plus seconds on the board with waves almost completely pushing here on Greenwich. This is an opportunity to finally open up the base. I will say it is a split team here, not a complete numbers advantage, and maybe Purdue... Yeah, I would probably look towards this Walker, secure that final Walker for that third flex spot, and maybe turn around for the mid-boss instead. Just, I mean, standard macro play. Take advantage of the little wins.
29 seconds on Vostis, though. 16 on Malachite. It's the Walker, maybe, and then probably letting the mid-boss go for now.
Yeah.
But they have to go for the Walker now if they want it. Some of the respawners are coming up now, so the flex slot going to be picked up again. That third flex slot available for Purdue, but Icy's looking to catch them on the exit. The bro's not enough for Sage to get away. Macron extremely low for the Bebop. And that kill going to be gifted over to Vostis. Now, for Northwood, who were just on the death's door, it seemed, they get the kills on exits, and they get a free mid-boss.
I mean, I gotta say, it is just a lack of focus there on that exchange. We got to highlight it perfectly with Monster, and I hate to pick on him because that's the view we get, but with that deep engage from Icy using that last stand, it is clearly a team fight that is separate in its damage. Jester tackled immediately, and you don't even have the support of Monster. He's focusing down the Walker. In the end, it is this split, at least focus, that loses Purdue one of their first major fights and hands away that mid-boss. It isn't the end of all because Purdue is still very strong here.
They're running
but this is going to delay. I mean, this is going to delay the game.
And Cardi's going to be here to match the urn, but I don't think Cardi's going to be able to stop the urn. You have the frozen shelter, but you cannot afford to give up your life. So here we go. Urn's going to be dropped, not delivered just yet.
Wow.
Oh, it did get delivered from Northwood,
Nope.
but...
Picked up.
Oh, it's not. Yeah, I just
There you
was
go.
so confused. I saw a few souls up in the air, but it was just braided.
Yeah, I mean, little bit aggressive to try to play around that, especially after being spotted by Flash on that urn take originally. I mean, cooldowns are high, but they're high enough for just the singular objective there. In the end, still, very close game, but one that balloons a bit further. Nice hook from Macron there. We still see the highlight of that damage. A Spectral Roll just barely seals the deal. Concussive Concussion slows things down, but it doesn't change the fact that Tired goes down nonetheless. Finally, though, a good burn. That Toxic Bullets Ricochet combo from Faustus really starting to look nasty here.
Yeah, I thought for a second the return fire was actually going to come back to bite. Tired, it did. Tired ended up falling, but you still get the kill onto Macron's, and you have that extra life, basically, for Tired, so you're going to be able to return to your team quick as could be. And for Purdue, I was going to say, like, the best case scenario for them losing that mid-boss is that they were coming off the spawn relatively soon, and they have all of their ultimates still, so whether or not they want to look for a fight now, get rid of that mid-boss respawn timer right away, it's up to them.
Shadow Weave up and available on Jester. That is a huge tool. You can't see the Wraith coming, and she'll pump the damage out here. Meanwhile, for Last Stand, finding double. A chase ahead. Icy finally locked out by the combo. The paradoxical swap, though, going to put Sage in such a tough position. This is a big win for Northwood. It comes at the cost of some major ultimates, but maybe this is their access into finally getting some walkers where they need it most.
It's a big reason why some people prefer the Paradox over the Mowing Krill is because you have to put yourself in danger if you're Sage. Now if the respawn, the cube going to be used, and Monster with the Guided Owl alongside the Hyper Beam. Purdue, the Walker stands, least over towards Broadway, and the kills now starting to allow them out of their spawn.
It doesn't get much better for Malachite. Chased out there as that final resulting wipe. Northwood does get to ride home off of the edge of that mid-boss Rejuvenator buff, so they will be back into the match there, but it just goes to show even the highlights, the Sage wipes there, that secondary death notably, is not enough for it to be just as confident. Still though, getting that Walker down on Greenwich, absolutely huge. In comparison to last game, where we saw Purdue unable to secure these major flex spots, we are one Walker away from Northwood being a lot more even, and especially with the Souls, nowhere close to as much of a balloon in this last game. For a final match of our best of three, I mean, this is as tight as it gets.
Close. It's such a delight to watch these two play. I had a lot of expectations for today, some desires to see some good Deadlock, and whether or not we got it was to be determined, but here we are seeing two powerhouse schools right now putting each other to the test, and this game is long but over. It seems like a couple fights and this could really swing for either side.
Yeah, we're going to get into the position where we really are looking for the balance of the 6v6 action here, because you have a lot of the same entities playing very, very well on both sides, and in the end, things like Jester on this Wraith is matched by Faustus on the Infernus. For now, Cardi looking to sustain extra additional leads with Purdue and Earn to be had with the balance on both sides here. It is going to be set up just across, notably on that York side. And to be honest, there's not much of a response from the side of Northwood. Should be able to secure this if supported.
Yeah, not yet, but you are getting Brayden over there, and it is an even soul drop-off, so you have the wave pushed up. Players can get there considerably fast, and it looks like they are going to be taking the zipline over to match them. Everybody's going to be here from Northwood to fight for this, and Cardi's not even full HP. You've lost Monster. That's a big pickup from Malachite, which I can only imagine actually did not use the paradoxical swap. And you can see Purdue's response is, yeah, we don't want to take this anywhere close to you.
Yeah, but they'll find Icy off of that rotation, now slowly starting to walk in there, blasted away. Faustus will get the concussive, but is pulled just back into it, hook alongside the rest. Finally, your major damage dealer picked apart in the middle of action is Tired. Yes, has set up some escalating turrets there and will delay this action, but it's good setups on the other side from Purdue to slowly pick them off. Slew, the next to fall.
And everybody's going to be brought back to full health using the McGinnis alongside the Kelvin, or sorry, alongside just the Kelvin in general. And that drop-off is going to be safe as could be. You get the cooldown reduction if you're Cardi there. and a whole lot of souls. 196 to 173. Tired is racing to get away from them. And this is Purdue's chance to really put the nail in the coffin.
A fantastic fight ahead there into the urn. I'd love to see this break open the base, but with those cooldowns still relatively high, maybe this is more of a discussion. Already Macron in the midst of the pit here. They're going to try to pull for this, knowing they have a small advantage.
It's only Macron here, so this might be bait. As soon as this noise is out, as soon as it roars, a couple of these members of Northwood might look to dive in deep. And yeah, Macron immediately going to back away, see if anybody falls for it, and look for a pick.
Tired pull on the side, hooked out over, double bomb set up there. Bit of a blast that chunks just absolutely absurd. Tired, the pick that he finds, the rat in the corner. Now a regroup from the Purdue side as that goo ball's coming in to knock things up.
There's a trade onto Monster, so even between both teams, Braden's gonna fall. There's Sage giving an edge now to Purdue for this fight. It's going to get messy, but Purdue, they're happy with that. You got the mid boss underneath you. Any kills getting you closer and closer to a win.
Slowed.
And now the paradoxical swap, just looking to keep your team in this fight. If you're Northwood, Malachite trying to stay alive, trapped between everybody. Macron gonna hook him, send him back over to the other side, and they are grasping onto straws right now. Slew falls, and that should be the call to give it up.
Still just trying to reset here. Faustus found out nonetheless, even after what was such an extension of that fight, the surviving play for Malachite off of the paradoxical swap. The teleport from behind immediately leads to what I can only assume is the end of Malachite. I see that final member left standing. That might be a binding, but in the face of a telekinesis, I'll tell you what binds just a bit better here. Finally, our Double Guardians picked apart.
And Jester's going to break on in, and you're talking about getting those flex slots. Well, as soon as this falls, it's going to be both or all 4 flex slots for the side of Purdue. You only have 2 on Northwood. 20-second cooldown on Slew. That's the next member up. It's going to be a 3-on-6 just to hold this, and you have the Rejuvenator.
It doesn't even matter. Just send it for the fight, because ultimately, in the end, the reset potential is there alongside it. They have shredded Northwood's base and potentially can look to end. They'll pull away, though, the macro, more preferential. So much of their utility utilized in that fight.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you have everything pointing your way to a victory. There's no need to overstay your welcome. You get out of there and you still have more souls to spend, more camps to get, more items to purchase. This is just Purdue trying to stamp their ticket and cross the finish line.
I'm curious to see some of the itemization here. Lucky shot on the edge, a leech as well here for the likes of Admiral Macron. Big damage to go alongside it. Big survivability has made for a monster of this Bebop. Curious to see what everyone else maybe potentially sets themselves up with now with that extra 4th slot available.
They're cruising right now for Purdue, and hey, for Northwood, everybody's back up. You have your ultimates, and that's solely down by what is 30k. It's going to be tough to fight this next one, especially considering you're still down 2 whole items with those flex slots not being active. It's full defense mode for Northwood.
No, this is really tough here. Now Jester, by the way, Soul Rebirth, a huge problem at hand. Even if you kill him, he'll be on his way back into it. Flash for the Leech as well, alongside that Mystic Reverb. Everyone is a highlight of Stardom. Potentially major max builds across the board here. An absurd soul lead, notably, with 54 secured on Jester, 42 on Macron. It's definitely more balanced than the absurd Haze game we saw.
Yeah.
But in terms of power, team fight potential, anyone has the option to be a problem.
Very put together, Purdue. They're crashing all of the waves as well with the Rejuvenator buff onto the minions. It's going to be tough just to let these waves sit and stir, so Purdue know exactly what they're doing, and that's why I'm starting to become a really big fan of this team. It is methodical. It's not just crash and burn. It is bleed them out.
Well, this is good. Could have maybe had the opportunity to sustain it. I like the Ice Beam with the Telekinesis on this side. Good Spectral Wall. That stops a major tool from being utilized there. Jester no longer has that available. Hook, though, still finds Malachi.
Absolutely disgusting. He gets a second one. The Refresher serving him up on a silver platter. Slew down to the graveyard. And here comes Purdue for the opening night of College Deadlock, the long-awaited show matches. Purdue, they've been cooking up something good. And it looks like they are marching their way to a victory.
Bostis tries as they might a concussive combustion with that ricochet and bleed. You can try to burn through the remnants here at Purdue, but at the end of the day, your Amber Patron is left indefensible, completely weakened, and dead on the water here for Northwood. Congratulations to Purdue, your victors of competitive Deadlock in the last month here. It is not often you see these matchups as tight as what we got the opportunity to take a look at here today between Northwood and Purdue. If this is any implication on the major future of collegiate Deadlock, then I am more than pumped here.
Look at the scoreboard for Purdue, even at the end of game number 3. Every single member, all 6 of them, with double-digit assists. You had 15 topped off for Cardi, who was always present in those engagements. Macron leading in kills, the eliminations from this Bebop. It's hard to evade somebody with such a long hook, but Macron was really catching so many of these members of Northwood. And for Northwood, I mean, I knew it was going to be an issue after seeing the way that they played this composition in game number 1. I think game number 3, they definitely had their head on their shoulders. They played a lot better. Maybe it was the change of heroes onto certain players. It was the lane swaps that we got. But in Northwood, I don't want to take it away from them. They played a good day. I wasn't a big fan of the composition, and I think that plays a big part on why we saw Purdue come ahead.